Well, welcome to Family Matters. I'm your host, Ray Johnson. Today we have a great subject. We're calling this Men Matters, and I have my friend with me, Dr. Eric Cooper, and also Lawrence Taylor. Not that Lawrence Taylor. You'll see which Lawrence Taylor I'm talking about. And we're going to talk about his book, Daddy, I Miss You. He's author of several books that are dealing with men. So both men and women, you want to tune in to this Men Matters. So you stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
You might just have a conversation if they're
Well, welcome back to Family Matters. As I said, today we're talking about some man matters. I have my friend here, Dr. Eric Cooper. Welcome to the show once again.
It's a pleasure. Thank
Good to have you here. And also, you've seen this gentleman before. This is Minister Lawrence Taylor. Not the Lawrence Taylor, but, you know, LT, as we affectionately call him. Both of these gentlemen are friends of mine. They're also board members of Family Empowerment Ministries. And I always like to get Dr. Cooper on because he's written another great book called Daddy, I Miss You. And he's written a number of books, Perils of a Silent Man, and what's the other one? Covenant, relationships before you say I do, oops, I already did. So this is talking about relationships and talking about men. So we want all men to tune in, and women, because women, as you listen and understand where we are coming from as men, that helps you get an understanding of the man that's in your life. So this is great. So, Dr. Cooper, Daddy, I Miss You. And you've also written Perils of a Silent Man. Talk to me about how did these books come together as far as the Perils and then the Daddy, I Miss You. So talk about your thought and how you ended up with these two books.
Well, how I basically ended up with them. Pearls of a Silent Man was, of course, my first book, and it dealt, of course, with the father being in the home but not being a very active part of the family environment. Mommy was making all the decisions, calling all the shots, and he was pretty much just there so much as a fixture. And of course, from that point on, I started dealing more into the area of study of men and their family relationships, of course, working with you in your great ministry. And then Perils of a Missing Man came up, which is, of course, Daddy, I Miss You, which is the main topic of that, because as a result of dealing with the silent man, I found that there was also another issue that was equal, if not even worse, and that's, of course, being the absent father in the role that they've abandoned by leaving their children as well as their spouses and the different aspects and the different things that happen in our life as a result of them not being there.
Because we know in this day and time, and here in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, Prince George's County, we're dealing with, as an educator, I know we're dealing with 60 to 70% of our children, they don't have a man in their life. You know, and there's an impact of that. So there's a man in their life, then is there an effective man in their life? You know what I mean? That's two complete different things. Okay, are they being effective? Are they being engaged? Are they doing the things that they need to do to help raise up not only their sons, but their sons and their daughters? You know what I mean? It's not just a son issue. It's sons and daughters. Both of those have an impact. So let's just talk about where we come from. Lawrence, talk to us about your upbringing, your father, tell us about your siblings, your household. What was it like?
Well, I'm number 7 of 9.
Okay.
My father was very active in our lives. He was, I guess you say, the breadwinner. My mother and father, they both worked. But I think my mother showed a more active role in, I guess, directing the family. My father was there, and he was more like the disciplinarian.
Okay.
He laid down the law, so to speak.
Right.
So he was there in that aspect. A great man, helped me to be the man I am. A good family man, loved children, loved always having company. So he wasn't an absent father, which I've never experienced an absent father. So reading this book, it was a great read. If I could just put a plug in for you, it's one that you want to go and pick up and read. So in a family of 9, 5 girls and 4 boys. My dad did the normal things a father would do. He was the breadwinner,
Right.
and the disciplinarian, and my mother was the one that nurtured and comforted us.
Sort of, she managed the household,
Yes.
right? You know, and so that's good. So Dad was sort of the visionary, the primary money winner, and okay, that's good. And we'll come back to the relationship a little more. What about yourself, Eric?
Well, mine was a opposite of that, that's for sure. My father was, in the early stages of my life, was there, but then somewhat absent. And then, of course, he passed away while I was very young, as well as my brother. So therefore, there was no really long-lasting interaction there. So as a result, my mother, of course, was the major factor in there. As a result of that, trying to get information from men, I would, of course, talk to older cousins or uncles, or either Sam and Joe and Dave and Scott and Tony, whoever that was, exactly. Correct. You get information.
Out,
some information was good. Some you don't ever want to even know about. So that's how that happened there. So of course, that's again a lot of the information that came out of the book was that that missing piece.
Dynamic. Now, were your parents married or not married?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so they were married. So that's good. Now me, and it was just the two of you, you and a brother, or
Sister.
Okay, it's 3. Where do you fall in there? You're the middle. Okay. And of course, the middle child. We already know issues. We already know you have issues just because you're the middle child. So, me, I am the youngest of 8.
Okay.
Youngest of 8, 3 girls, 5 boys. My mother and father, they were both there. Sort of interesting. My father was there. My father would have been more the silent. He was around. He was the breadwinner. You know what I mean? He worked, and I grew up in Ohio, so factories were the. So he worked in the factory. And let's talk a little bit about communication with our fathers.
Okay.
In the time we knew. With my father, we didn't have sit down, son, let me tell you about the birds and the bees kind of conversations. I think with my brothers and having all those boys, of course, we were into sports. So we were Cleveland Browns fans and Cleveland Indian fans growing up, in Ohio. So we never had any deep conversations, as it were. Now, what was, Lawrence, with you, what was the communication piece like with you and your father?
Well, the way he communicated with me, it was really through projects.
Okay.
As he was teaching me how to change the brakes on the car, how to wash the car, that was when he would get that time to communicate to me about these are your responsibilities as a man, as a father. You're supposed to be the one that fixed the car and make sure the car is running right and making sure the yard's taken care of, which he was an advocate of a clean yard. He used to tell us at 5 o'clock in the morning, we sleep, but we would hear his voice.
Right.
He would yell, make sure you police the yard before I get home. And that meant that everything in the yard had to be spotless by the time he got home. So he took those opportunities when he was teaching me about my responsibilities and showing me some of my responsibilities to talk to me about my relationship with him and growing up and being a man and having children and things like that. So those were the times he took when we were doing projects.
Oh, that's good. And I didn't ask, your father still living, or?
No, my father
your
passed
father
away.
passed away.
Yeah.
My father passed away also.
Yeah,
So,
likewise.
and in the time you remember the interaction with your father, what was communication like?
My communication
With him?
my communication was, I was told stories of, do you remember the time that we went to the zoo? Or do you remember the time that, you know, a record player was brought for you or something like that? But outside of that, I can't recall.
Unlike, and you were younger by the time your father passed. Now, I don't know what age were you when you were having those kind of life lessons within projects?
About 14, 15.
Okay, yeah.
14, 15.
Right.
Yeah.
See, and that's important because your father passed away at 14.
So as a result, I Google help to come fix this and come help fix that. The Yellow Pages is gone. It used to be the Yellow Pages. Now
that's gone now.
Yeah.
You Google, Bing, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So you didn't learn those how to use your hand type thing. Now, my father, he didn't teach me those things. I watched him do some of them. But as far as my father, he died when I was 1978, right after I graduated from high school. You know, he died. So he was sick, heart and kidney and, you know, those types of things. He was sick those last few years. And also an interesting thing about that is that my mother and father also split up after everyone was gone, but I was the only one home, and then they split up. Well, that's good. Well, we talked a little bit about where we came from and our story and our father and relationship. So when we come back, we're going to get into this book, Daddy, I Miss You, Perils of a Missing Man. So you stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Well, welcome back to Family Matters. I'm sure you enjoyed that first segment as we sort of told a little bit about our stories and where we come from and how our fathers were involved or influenced us. Now I want to get into this great book, Daddy, I Miss You, Perils of a Missing Man. Dr. Cooper wrote this book, and I think it's a great book. And what's good about it is that it's not very thick. That's good for men.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know? And it's as easy to understand. It's written on a level that men can grasp it and understand it. Because men, we will read short books. We will read sports pages. We will read snippets of information. I had read a report once that they said 80% of novels are read by women.
Right.
So a lot of men don't read for pleasure. But this here is reading for education and understanding. It gives you an education about who we are as men, how other men might function. And I found it interesting as a counselor, that very good information to help get understanding as I'm talking to men. So let's get into this. Daddy, I Miss You, Perils of a Missing Man. In the first chapter, you talk about why did you leave me? Now, I know as a counselor that when a dad is missing or left, the child many times will wonder, well, what did I do? Talk to us. What was your research in that? Have you, when you look at that?
Sure. Well, what I've initially found out is that back in years gone by of our ancestors, that we were brought into a cabin, required to have a child, but you were never given the responsibility to raise the child.
Okay.
So as a result, you have a child and you were in another plantation or another cabin, have another child, and so therefore your rearing of the child was not there. And then somehow or another, that which was never designed to be in the first place somehow became a tradition of sorts where fathers are making children but never actually responsible. Or they should be responsible, but not actually, taking care of them. And so a child would think, well, what did I do to caused this. I mean, I understand all these different things that happen, but personally, I'm trying to figure out that why did you leave me? I mean, I understand why he might have left her, or he might have left there, but where am I in this particular thing? And so, I have in there, like, was it, my smile that made you think that you needed to be responsible? Was it that you were never committed to anything else previously? Did you, change? And even children now, sometimes they play baseball. Then I don't want to play baseball anymore. I want to play piano. I don't want to play piano anymore. I want to, do ballet or whatever it is.
Whatever.
And so you say, oh, it's cute. They're trying to find themselves. And, years have gone by. And the next thing you know, they're 35. And they still have these same tendencies that they had, when they were 5. And so somehow or another, I think Father is getting to that place that, well, I've never been committed to anything. So, you're no different at this point.
And then when we see it going on, this goes on in every ethnicity, but we see it more in the African American community, and that's when you mention the thing about slavery and that, perpetuating this not sticking it out. What do you think about that?
Well, he asked an interesting question at the end. What will cause you to leave your children? And like you said at the end of that chapter, prayerfully, the answer should be nothing. Because it's crucial that the male voice, the male presence is in the home. It's very crucial. And you're right, children will think, well, what was it? What did I do to make you leave? Because they don't understand all the adult matters that are going on in the house. And they don't really need to understand that. But the missing father it really hurts the child. It really hurts the child. Even down as they grow into adults, they still are trying to find their way because there was no one there to direct them in the path that they should go.
See, and that's interesting because the second chapter is who told you that. So and that's dealing with how do we get our masculine identity. We're talking about whether it's a girl or a boy, there's a masculine identity. So who told you that? What were you thinking, Doc, when we were talking?
When you're hearing these things, I mean, you know there's certain things that you should do or a direction that you should go, and then all of a sudden your mindset is shifted towards a whole nother direction. And so if the father's not there, so like what you said in the beginning, you hear that voice, and there's a voice that you hear command. Even I'm pretty sure now your yard is just as immaculate as it possibly could be because you're still hearing that voice. How dare you drive away and that yard is immaculate? You know what I mean? And so you should have that way of hearing that voice where there's a command, there's a spoken word that can encourage you, that can motivate you, that can kind of direct you. You use almost a statement of that where it said it should be like you're in the arrow of a bow. And that's being shot out into your destiny, your direction, and you need to constantly be fed with that voice and that word. Even scripturally, our God, our Heavenly Father, in the Spirit is just talking to us all the time. You do something completely opposite from that. He's like, who told you that?
Who told you that?
Where that information from? I think I use Adam, where it says that, I was naked and I hid. Well, where'd you get that information from? Who you talking to?
Who told you that?
And so, we need to hear that Father's voice constantly.
And it's something how that guidance and hearing the Father's voice, and you mentioned it when you were talking about your father dying at an early age, you started listening to other voices.
Absolutely.
We're going to listen to someone.
You're going to hear somebody. Somebody's going to direct you. Somebody's going to tell you, and you find yourself doing some things that you know you shouldn't be doing, but it sounded like a good idea at that point.
At the time.
And there was a guy that told me one time when I was buying something in a store using a credit card or something at this point. He said, well, you can go buy as much stuff. They're not going to come and take the stuff back from you. And I was thinking, that's absolutely right. Why do I need to pay these people? Never mind your credit rating integrity.
Right,
or
right.
He didn't
anything
tell
like
you
that, your
all that.
loyalty
Yeah,
or
right.
integrity.
Yeah, your
That's
integrity.
not the
Forget
issue.
all that. Yeah, that's
so
not,
you hear those kinds of things, and the next thing you know, you're out shopping, buying stuff that you know you're not going to pay for ever because they're not going to come back and get it. But that was advice that was given.
Yeah, and you like, okay, I value that person. They seem like they're doing all
Absolutely.
right, and
Absolutely.
they wouldn't tell me anything wrong.
You would think.
You would think.
Absolutely.
But we don't know where they got their
Right,
information
exactly.
from, right?
Mhm.
So that becomes a big issue because we're looking for someone to listen to, and that ended up tying into trying to find our way. Now we're wondering.
Absolutely.
Right.
You know what I mean? What do you think, Lord?
Well, that's why it's important that the male is present and his voice is heard in the house, because you are going to listen to a voice. Just like you were saying with in the store incident, that somebody was that you don't have to pay for. You can get on a credit card. They're not going to come and get the stuff.
Right.
But if there's no voice there who've told you that, hey, that's wrong, you shouldn't do that way,
Right.
who build up your integrity and told you the right way, if you don't have that voice there, you'll end up listening to that voice because there's no other voice
Right.
contradicting
Right.
what they
Absolutely.
just said. So
Absolutely
that's
right.
why it's important for the male voice to be there. That's why we should speak into our son's life, speak into our nephew's life, speak into our daughter's lives and our niece's lives. Our voice carries a major weight. Even after we're gone,
Right.
our voice is still speaking. My dad's voice is still speaking to me, even now as an adult male. I can still hear his voice
And that
and still
is
take
crucial.
direction, even though he's not here.
Not here. You can have a reference point
Yes.
to go back to what would my dad tell me
Right.
to do. Now I even find myself going, I wish my dad would have told me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
that I would have had that reference point to go back to. Okay, I seen Dad in this situation, but I don't have that reference point. Same thing with you. Whether it's silent or whether they're gone by way of death, doesn't matter why the voice is gone. It's gone. You know what I mean? And they both have the same impact and the same effect. So then it comes down to, you talk about the women, we hearing mama's voice. That's the voice. Well, what
Mama's
about
in
that? How
control.
does that? Yeah, mama's in control.
Mama's in control. that was one of the things, because when a father is not there, the mother is making all the decisions. She's calling the shots, what you're going to wear to school, what school you're going to go to. She's interacting with the repairmen. She's interacting with the people at the school. And then you get to the school, and the majority of the teachers are female. So that voice of authority is constantly, ringing in your ear. Your counselors, and you get on your job. Sometimes there's a woman supervisor. And so when this guy gets married, he's like, he just, what I need to do anything for.
Right,
Mama's always in control. The woman's always in control. And so he's easily falls into that role of not having that voice of authority or anything, because of the fact that he's always seen a woman in control. He's always seen her doing it. So he doesn't, talk to the repair people. He doesn't tell the children to do anything. And so now we got a perpetual thing that's going on now in a generational situation, because now your son is looking at you not interacting. And so we go back to that silent piece again. That I don't need to do that. That's mama's responsibility.
Yeah, and we see that happening now as fathers, ourselves. We see the value and the importance of being a voice, being in leadership, having a vision for our household, and how that or lack thereof would affect, our children. So we need to know, men that are out there listening, that your voice matters. And this is the point. Now these women are begging us to be in charge.
Yes.
And we don't know how to be in charge.
Right. What's that?
No.
Yeah, they're begging us,
Go ask your
take
mother.
control. You make the decision, but then we're going, where did I get that? Where do I learn that? Some of us, we have the you know, we end up in churches that will teach us some of those things, and you end up with men like that that will teach us the things that we didn't learn from our quote unquote fathers. So that's really something. Mama in control. Here's something, and I was talking to a gentleman yesterday at the TV station. How can I love him? How can I respect him? And this dealing with the child in the man. And was the situation with him. And we were just standing around talking. And what had happened, he grew up he's from Ohio also, and he grew up in a rough neighborhood. Dad wasn't around. It was 4 of them. Mama raised them. He didn't meet his dad for the first time till he was 35. And he had that struggle of, how do I love him? You know what I mean? How do I love a man that hasn't been there?
Like me for 30 years,
Right. Yeah. But then it tied back into, he knew who his dad was as a teenager. Then he really had conversation like at 35. His dad since passed away. But it tied into all the things we were talking about. He said, I wish I would have had a relationship. Wish I would have taken the time to get to know him. So let's talk about that a little. And we're about out of time here. And I mean, this is just fantastic.
Me first or you?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, it's absolutely what you stated. You have this missing piece, and I must say that this book brought so much healing and resolve and peace and forgiveness to me, because all of those things that, just like this gentleman was saying, for years you've been carrying it on. And so in order for me to get complete deliverance from that, I believe God just placed it in my heart to do it, because not only if I'm facing it, then a whole lot of other people were dealing with the same aspect of it. And so you get to this point of how do I love? How do I forgive? Would I have been better? And I think my brother wrote a piece, because I had some testimonials in there.
Right.
Would I have been better off with, or am I okay now without it? You know, because you learn how to make these adjustments in those, you know, different things in life. And let me explain to other men, you can't use the fatherless role as a crutch for not being all that you can be, doing all that you can do, because you can win and be successful in life with or without a father. And I just want to make sure that was clear.
Right. Yeah. Okay. It's not an excuse.
Yeah, but how do you love them? And even from a female standpoint, she never saw a father interactive in the home, never saw a mother-father relationship. So now I get married. How do I love this guy? You know, I'm supposed to respect him, but how can I respect him when all I heard is that men are no good, they dogs, they trifling, they left you,
so
they shouldn't, you know. So where do you go from that point? How can I respect this man and marry a guy and become in love with him and completely respect him when all I've heard all my life is that men leave you, and you be careful, girl, get your own money for a rainy day, and you know, save up and be careful, and those kinds of things. So we have to get past that, go deeper in the heart, find that place of forgiveness and resolve, and you'll definitely be able to love and respect that.
Okay. Well, our time is up.
Okay.
This has been fantastic. Obviously, we could just sit here and go on for hours talking about this, but we talked about some of the issues, but this book gives you some of the answers.
Absolutely.
So it's not just a book of issues. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
He gives us some answers in here and how we need to go about taking care of our business as men to have that influence in our family. Well, gentlemen, I've enjoyed this.
Absolutely.
Dr. Cooper.
Pleasure.
Thank you,
Lawrence,
sir.
Thank you.